So I have to say, this is really the biggest honor, and it always has been for all the years that I have worked with the Green Party of Canada and worked with Elizabeth May to be able to introduce her. She's more than just an icon to people who are searching for hope in our democracy and hope for our world. She's been fighting for those things all her life, all her life. From the beginning, when she was, God knows how young you were. You certainly in the photos looked super young. Back in your hometown in Nova Scotia, or in the province there, fighting against the aerial spraying of herbicides and Agent Orange, and just moving on through campaign after campaign. I met Elizabeth May first when she was working in Ottawa, and I was based out here. We were both working for environment groups to try and protect Haida Gwaii and Gwaii Haanas and the name South Moresby National Park Reserve, and actually we became friends at that point. So we've been friends for a good many decades at this point, and it never ceases to amaze me, her energy, the passion with which she conducts herself, her commitment to seeing change happen in our country and our world, to standing up for people, to standing up for future generations, to standing up for civil rights, for democracy in this country. It's amazing when you think about it. Not only did she defy what all the forecasters said. In the last election, the forecasters said that she would not get elected, and yet she swept that Conservative riding of Saanich Gulf Islands. As Canada's first Green MP, she has done us so proud. In 2012, she was voted by her peers Parliamentarian of the Year. In 2013, she was voted the hardest working member of Parliament. In 2014, she was voted the best orator. She is indeed our beacon of hope. She is the center of what will be a Green caucus in the next Parliament. I give you Elizabeth May. I've got to say, in case you didn't know, the woman who talked me into running for leader of the Green Party is my friend Adrienne Carr. She was so determined, she kept begging me, and I only found out later why she was so determined that I should agree to leave Sierra Club of Canada and run for leader of the Green Party, was that she'd promised the leader who was leaving, Jim Harris, that if she couldn't convince me to run, she would run. So she had this really amazing incentive to make sure I ran. And I've been motivated in everything I've ever done from the same place of commitment to protecting what I don't think of as the environment, but I think of as creation. I've been committed all my life. Adrienne mentioned early fights in the 1970s to stop the distribution of insecticides by aircraft over the forest of Cape Breton Island, where my family lived. We fought Agent Orange. My family lost our land in a court suit trying to stop Agent Orange in the days when Health Canada said it was safe. I've been doing the basically uphill battles all my life. I know what it feels like when you're in an uphill battle. I know what it feels like. Earlier there was a song that had the lyric of feeling a boot on your neck. I know what that feels like. And I also know what it feels like when you're about to win really big. And it feels like this. It feels like knowing that Canadians are sick and tired of being told they have no real choice. They're tired of being told there's no money. Because we can't fight poverty, we can't have affordable housing. We just can't be done because after all, this is the 21st century and we've surrendered all democratic rights to global corporate rule. So what are you talking about? You want to take care of people. You want to get rid of poverty. You want affordable housing. I found where the money is, by the way. It's really fun to know where it is because we're going to need to spend it. The extent to which Stephen Harper has cut corporate income taxes for the very large corporations is so extreme that I don't know how many of you know this, but now the largest corporations in Canada pay less tax in Canada than in any other industrialized country, and in fact, half that of the United States. So any company owned in the United States, for which we have branch plants here, end up paying the taxes on the profits they made in Canada south of the border to the US. IRS because we tax them so low. So it turns out that all that money, and Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of Canada, came up with this term. When we were told we had to cut corporate tax rates, it was because the corporations were, of course, organized for one purpose only, and that was, of course, benevolence and altruism, and making sure that they could create as many jobs as possible for as many Canadians as possible. So naturally, since that's their driving instinct and purpose, when you cut these nasty taxes that were holding them back for doing so much public good, holding them back, cut back the taxes, you will unleash the altruism of the corporate sector. Well, Mark Carney pointed out what was happening is that over $600 billion is sloshing around in corporate accounts. It's Mark Carney's the one who came up with the term dead money. So there's dead money sloshing around. It's now up to 35% of our GDP. So I'm very, very tired, and I think most Canadians are tired of being told there's no way to have the programs we need. There's no way to fix our healthcare system and to have a national pharmacare plan. There's no way, they say, to ensure that seniors don't have to choose between whether they eat this month or buy their prescription drugs this month. It's unacceptable. We're a wealthy country. We're a safe country. We're a democracy. And we do not cede our rights anymore to those who say that we live for bitumen. We live for oil. We do not live for communities. We live for our communities. We fight for our communities, and we will defend this coast. A few days ago in Ottawa, by the way, you do know that since I got elected, and we've talked a lot about how I was the first Green in Parliament, but you know I'm not the only Green in Parliament. We doubled the caucus a couple of years ago with Bruce Heyer from Thunder Bay, Superior North. Bruce Heyer and I, a couple of days ago, tabled in Parliament a new bill to require that any new legislation coming forward would have to have an advanced impact assessment to see what it would do to small business. Because here's a secret people don't know. We all remember. Actually, this is how the Green Party came into being. It was almost by accident. Back in 1980, I started a party to just run for office to be able to talk about environmental and anti-nuclear issues, and decided to call it the Small Party based on the economics text of E.F. Schumacher, small is beautiful. And it turns out it's really true. Small is beautiful. Small business in Canada employs more people than any other businesses. Most Canadians are employed in small and medium-sized enterprises. In British Columbia, it's over 1 million people are employed by small business. Small business is over 30% of Canada's GDP. How much is the oil sands, would you suppose? Two. And we've been told in all those government ads, our own, your tax dollars at work, bringing us advertising, showing super tankers plying our coasts, how sustainable the resource is all going to be. Because if you listen to the petroleum industry ads, which are only marginally different from the ads we pay for ourselves, it's as though every time we send our children to school or go to the emergency ward to see a doctor and experience our universal health care system, we should really get down on our knees and thank God for global big oil, because they're the only reasons we have schools and hospitals. What a lot of hooey. It's 2%. The oil sands are 2% of GDP. Small business is 30% of GDP. So we want people to know we're the party for jobs, because we're the party for small business, and we want to make their life easier. We want to let those small businesses grow. The coast of British Columbia, but we're also going to defend the coast of Atlantic Canada. We're going to defend the coast of the Arctic Ocean, because big oil has its sights set on all of them. And we're the only party in this country opposing every one of the bitumen diluent pipelines being pushed right now. And I can tell you the Greens in Quebec are running strong campaigns on that same line we just heard about the best way to protect, was that you, Lisa? The best way to protect Bird Inlet is to have Green Party MPs at every place all around it. Well, the Greens in Quebec are running the same thing. Build a green wall along the St. Lawrence River to stop the Energy East pipeline, protect the St. Lawrence River, protect the Gulf of St. Lawrence. We build a green wall that stands against giving up our rights and our sovereignty. We stand to make sure that in this election campaign, I get a chance in the debates, even though at this point, by the way, I suppose you've noticed, once I was invited to participate in the national televised leaders debates, which every Prime Minister has been in since 1968, you probably heard, Stephen Harper says he won't come. He's no longer interested in the national televised leaders debates, which in the last election reached 14 million people. He'd like some small boutique ones, which have the additional advantage of, so far, of the 5 Stephen Harper says he'll participate in, only one of those 5 have I been invited to participate in. Now, I don't think people have been making, light of this in some of the media. Oh, why would Stephen Harper be afraid of debating Elizabeth May? Well, what works in reality probably works in theory. I'll give you a minute. In 2008, actually it was 2007, the Conservative Party first told the television consortium that if the Green Party was included in the debates, if I was invited to the debates in 2008, Stephen Harper would not come. This is not a surprise. This is what he did last time. And in 2011, they managed, all the parties met behind closed doors with the TV consortium and decided I would not be invited in those debates, and that's how they got a majority government. This election, everything changes. I think as long as all the other parties hold firm, and that is an if, as long as the Liberals, the New Democrats, and the Greens stand firm to say, and the consortium stands firm to say, yeah, we're going to have the national televised leaders debate. There's Mr. Harper's podium, it's empty. At that point, I think he'll have to show up. And my challenge in those debates is going to be to make sure that Canadians understand, and Mulcair and Trudeau understand, because I know Lisa knows, that thanks to Stephen Harper selling us out to Beijing on the Canada-China Investment Treaty, we're going to have to be prepared as a country to get our own laws back, to get back protection of fisheries habitat, to get back environmental assessment, to get back the Navigable Waters Protection Act protecting every navigable water in this country as they have been protected since 1867 until Stephen Harper's Omnibus Budget Bill C-45. To get those laws back without looking over our shoulder to see, will Beijing let us do this? Oh dear. We have to know that Canadians are aware that Stephen Harper has sold us out to Beijing, and to get our laws back, we're going to have to write Beijing a check. The risk is of Trudeau or Mulcair being prepared to cave quietly, privately, without anyone knowing. This is going to be a tough election. We're going to have to fight to take our country back. And it's going to mean that we have to communicate some tough things like, yes, we want to get back fisheries habitat protection, and yes, we're going to get back environmental assessment, and yes, we're going to get back our Navigable Waters Protection Act, and yes, we may even have to take back some of our labor protections. We need to protect our country. We need our country back. And the biggest sellout of sovereignty in the history of this country is what Stephen Harper did in ratifying the Canada-China Investment Treaty, and we're going to have to be prepared to say, okay, you sold us out for 31 years, thank you very much, Mr. Harper. Every time that people in this country write a check to Beijing, we'll remember who to blame. But in the meantime, we will not cave! I know that Lynn Cornby has spoken very passionately about the Kinder Morgan expansion. I just wanted to let you know something about why I'm still an intervener in the National Energy Board process, because I agree with every word in Robin Allen's letter of withdrawal. The process is corrupt. The process is not fair. The process is not, at this point it looks like a foregone conclusion that the National Energy Board will approve the Kinder Morgan expansion, because on every issue of substance, when Kinder Morgan was found cheating, and Robin Allen's the one who found that. I don't know if you knew this about the evidence presented by Kinder Morgan. They made a great deal about how it was, I don't know what, 24,000 pages, whatever it was. I printed it all out and went through it and removed all the stuff that wasn't useful, all the repetitions and everything, and read the stuff that was worth reading, trying to find the evidence that they had, they said they'd assembled scientific studies that showed, don't worry, bitumen mixed with diluent in the ocean environment will behave exactly like normal crude. Well, this seemed impossible to believe because we know how it behaved when, and you heard earlier about the Kalamazoo River spill, that was Enbridge. Enbridge was officially found, by the way, by the National Transportation Commission of the US government as having practiced a culture of negligence. Wonderful. The reviewers referred to the behavior of Enbridge it wasn't quite a spill. They had a broken pipeline. All the sensors had gone off to tell them the pipeline was broken, but they decided the sensors were wrong, so they turned them all off and then pushed thousands and thousands of barrels of this stuff into the Kalamazoo River. In any case, you couldn't clean it up. That's what we discovered. In a freshwater environment, you can't clean up bitumen mixed with diluent. It separates, just as Lynn was describing. Some of it goes in the atmosphere, some of it goes deep into the ground. That's what we found out about dilbit. But we didn't know how it would behave in a marine environment. So Kinder Morgan said they'd done studies. They knew all about how it would behave. I finally found them in the appendices. They did, believe it or not, they took big fish tanks in Gainford, Alberta, put in water and added salt and stirred to replicate Burrard Inlet, and then they added the dilbit and said it behaved just like crude. 10 days in fish tanks. One of them was only 5 gallons, and they reported they had problems because the slick that they poured behaved badly, and they didn't have a ruler big enough to figure out. So not only were these badly done studies and short studies over a 10-day period, that's what they were relying upon. But that wasn't the fraud. The fraud I wanted to mention was that they said that they had analyzed oil spill behavior on a mathematical model that was used by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. And I took that at face value. I found the appendices. It was marked, United States Environmental Protection Agency, and it was oil spill modeling, how you do it mathematically. I accepted that on face value. I'm so grateful to Robin Allen because she called the US EPA to say, I'm not quite sure how this mathematical modeling for oil spill prediction actually works in this context. And they said, what are you talking about? What oil spill predictive modeling are you? Well, she described the paper to them, and they said, oh, that was a draft. That was eliminated at the first stage of peer review. That's not what we use. So someone at Kinder Morgan, I suppose accidentally, had whited out the word draft on every page of this thing. I mean, you'd think that a quasi-judicial body like the National Energy Board, finding clear fraud in the tabling of evidence, would have at least given Kinder Morgan a slap on the wrist. So here's why I'm staying in this process, agreeing with every single word of Robin Allen's letter of resignation. Before I even filed to become an intervener in this process, I hired Toronto lawyer Clayton Ruby. And when it's over, I'm going to sue them. I'm going to sue them for breach of natural justice. I'm a lawyer. I'm going to sue them because it violates every standard of testing evidence to say you don't get to do oral cross-examination of the industry expert witnesses. You can mail your questions in and you can receive the inadequate answers back. That is not a quasi-judicial hearing to protect our coasts. That is fraud, and that violates our rights, that violates natural justice, and I will sue them. So that's why I'm staying in. So, all of us as candidates for the Green Party of Canada in this election, and we do now mean from coast to coast because Greens have now been elected in Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick, as well as having a sitting Green MP in Ontario, and Greens in British Columbia, provincially, federally, municipally, and in this last election, so many new municipal Green councillors elected on Vancouver Island. We are going to defend our coasts, and we are, and I can't say this strongly enough because I know a lot of people have this feeling that somehow the NDP really opposes Kinder Morgan, is just not ready to say it yet. If there was ever a time to have already said it, I think it's now. We're going to an election campaign, and Tom Mulcair has never once said that he will fight Kinder Morgan. In fact, when he was talking to the Vancouver Sun, and you can find this interview, it was done by Peter O'Neill. Google it, look it up. Peter O'Neill said that Tom Mulcair ridiculed Elizabeth May and the Greens for opposing the pipelines. So be clear on this when you're talking to people. We need Green MPs to defend our coasts. We need Green MPs to say, no way ever will we allow super tankers or the increasing tankers out of the port from Kinder Morgan to run Aframax tankers with bitumen and diluent? No. We will say no, because we understand that it's better economics as well as the only way to protect our coasts to process that stuff in Alberta and not take unprocessed raw bitumen, just like raw logs, to ship out our resources and ship the jobs with them. And that's why Unifor filed its brief against Kinder Morgan. We stand with organized labor in opposing shipping out raw resources. I just wanted to say one more thing and then I'll get off the stage, because it's a wonderful rally and it's great to see you all here. But I know when you see candidates step up, it's amazing for us who've been, and for many of you who've been in the Green Party longer than I have, the quality of these candidates, the extraordinary background and skill. We stand here in North Vancouver, where the next Member of Parliament for North Vancouver will be Claire Martin, because the choice is clear. Claire will be a wonderful Member of Parliament. And so will Lynn Cornby. Lynn will be there to say science matters. Look at the science, look at the evidence. And so will Ken Malaman, because Ken knows how to run an operation, take something and make it as green as possible. And Joanne Roberts will be the Member of Parliament for Victoria, and Wes Reagan for East Vancouver, and Marcus Matz. Everybody come on up. All the candidates come on up. Everybody. And what we're going to be is quiet, great speech. Awesome. Give us a place to stand. Give us a place to stand. What we're going to be is the strongest group of strong-minded, independent thinking MPs who understand that our job is to work for our constituents, and that the number one thing our constituents want when this election is over, and it's a minority parliament, and the Liberals and the NDP are busy fighting with each other, and Stephen Harper thinks he might be able to form a minority parliament, is that all of us are the wall that defends democracy. The green wall that says, no way does Stephen Harper form government ever again. Because we are going to insist on cooperation, we're going to insist on democracy, and we're going to insist that there's a climate policy and that we get rid of first past the post. And we will negotiate with anyone in any of the parties that are progressive so that we form a cooperative, greener parliament that works for you. And we'll do it!